Hello, Internet. I'm Chris, and this is episode 1 of Patriot Party News. So why Patriot Party News? The truth is I'm sick and tired of being lied to by the mainstream media all the time. The stories we're going to talk about today are just another example of how you can take the truth and twist it. It's very unfortunate that we live in this world where you cannot trust the things that you see on the mainstream media. Free press is important because it's the only way that society can function. Our leaders need to know that there are watchdogs making sure that their behavior is okay and legal. But if the media is going to lie to protect one party or lie at all, then we have no way of trusting any of the information that we're receiving. At that point, basically all it is propaganda. It's unfortunate, and it has damaged our country. Now, whether or not that damage can be corrected, I don't know. But I believe it's time for a new party, a party that's focused on liberty and freedom. And I want to do my part to report exactly how this is going down and what it's going to look like. I'm going to do my best to interpret the news and give you a fair and honest accounting of what actually happened. I'm going to take sources from around the internet and some field reporting and try to get you guys the whole story. Now, our first story comes to us from CNN. I know, it's CNN. But we need to read these guys because we need to know exactly what they're putting out there. Because there are millions of people that trust CNN and believe exactly what they say. So if they can watch this video and understand how sometimes things are distorted and sometimes it's just straight up a lie. Today's story isn't necessarily a lie. It is a little distorted, but it's very important. The Proud Boys are an organization, mostly men, but there are some women who are involved, and they call themselves Western chauvinists. Now, over the year, they've gotten much larger, and they do have a history of getting into fights, but rarely do they start the fights. Now, the funny thing is they also have a history of getting arrested, but the people that they fight don't get arrested. Now, to me, that seems very interesting. The story today is that Enrique Tarrio, who is the leader of the Proud Boys, was arrested on his way to D.C. to support President Trump. He was arrested for some vandalism that occurred on December 12th. Now, he's admitted to the vandalism, but in my opinion, I don't know if it's actually true. You see, the Proud Boys have a history of their leaders falling on the swords for their membership. So it's a very good chance that he didn't actually burn it, but he's taking responsibility to take the heat off the people that did, because several Proud Boys are in jails for fights where they were just defending themselves. Oddly, he was also arrested and charged with the possession of 2 high-capacity magazines. Now, the report didn't say anything about the firearm, so I'm assuming that the magazines in question were the only issue. Now, CNN reached out to Tarrio. He didn't want to talk to him, obviously. Why would you give them a quote so they can just lie about you? But they go out of their way to point out that the Proud Boys are a far-right organization. Now, they are not a far-right organization. Far-right, according to the Wikipedia, is reference to extreme right or neo-Nazis or fascists or authoritarians. That's not what they are. They're a drinking club who in the recent months have had to take to the streets to defend regular people. It's a little bit ridiculous that they keep throwing this term far-right around. Everyone is far-right according to Wikipedia. Anyone who is not exactly center-right is a part of the far right, and it's absolutely asinine. Our second story comes to us via the Gateway Pundit. the state legislature of Wisconsin has issued a resolution that calls into question the certification of votes in Wisconsin. Specifically, they identify several issues and mistakes by the clerks and deputy clerks, such as providing absentee ballots to people who weren't eligible. Now, the Gateway Pundit is reporting that this could cause decertification, but I've read the resolution and I don't actually see that anywhere in it. But it does provide a call to action to rectify these mistakes. Now, how this impacts the 2020 election, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But interestingly enough, it doesn't call for anything to occur until the 7th, which is one day after the votes are tabulated in Congress and certified. So I don't know if it's actually going to do any good. The real important thing here is they identify actual issues with the process. Now, if the real news would talk about this, more people would understand that Trump supporters aren't crazy. There are issues with this, major issues, that if they had been handled properly during the election, probably would have supported the president. And it's funny how every single time something like this occurs, it benefits Joe Biden. Now, you can be a conspiracy theorist and still be correct. I don't know how else to describe this, but in every state where there was a hearing, we hear about all of these errors in Biden's favor. Now, maybe it's a coincidence, but I find that to be highly doubtful. Our third and final story comes from The Guardian. The Guardian is stating that the phone call between Trump and the Secretary of State of Georgia is electrifying voters. Electrifying them to get out and participate in the runoff for the Senate. What's the problem? The Guardian is reporting that Donald Trump was trying to force the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, to find 11,800 votes for Trump. But that is not what happens in the call. In the call, Trump states that they've identified these votes and that the voters in question had moved. They no longer lived in Georgia and therefore were no longer eligible to vote. Now, the Secretary of State's lawyers state that no, those people moved back. Well, where's the evidence of that? But it speaks to a bigger issue. If people only hear the first 4 minutes of a story and then go out incensed and angry because of that, then they're making a huge mistake. And the Washington Post knows that this is what's going to happen. They know that if they release the 4 minutes of clipped audio, that the majority of people who see it, that will be enough. They won't do any further investigation and they will go forth assuming that it's correct. Then later in the evening, after they've received some crap from other reporters or YouTube personalities, they release the entire audio. But after that point, the damage is done. What's the point? Other than covering their own butts. I mean, honestly. If they really wanted to tell the truth, they would have released the audio originally and given a fair account of what happened on the phone call. But if we're being completely honest, the call was a part of a legal proceeding, and therefore it probably shouldn't have been released in the first place. But whoever leaked it might have done more damage than they thought, but not to the president. In the phone call, the president identifies several things that they've done wrong. That there are voters that moved, that still voted. There are voters that are dead that voted. And that there are highly irregular activities such as pulling the ballots from underneath the table and counting them while no one was in the room. Now, the Secretary of State's attorneys had no answer for this other than we're looking into it, or we have looked into it and we can't find anything. But really, it's ridiculous. We have it on videotape, so just give us the dang answers. Thank you very much for watching the first episode of Patriot Party News. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll stick with us as we grow and we get a little bit better at speaking in front of this camera. I would never have guessed how increasing or how insanely difficult it really is. Thank you.